Well, hey, welcome back to the HC Conversations podcast. My name is Paul.
And I'm Phil.
And I'm Phil, and I'm not Phil, but he's Phil.
You just wanted to reaffirm that
I
Phil,
did. I wanted to affirm the Philness in you.
Thank you. I need that.
And it's a new month, so that means a new episode for y'all. Today's just kind of be a grab bag where it's just like, we don't have one topic to talk about, but we've got three.
A couple things we want to touch on.
Talk about.
Yeah, so it'll be good. We jumping right in?
Sure, let's jump right in.
All right. Well, one of the first things I thought I wanted to talk about was this idea that it's okay to change your mind on things. You know, like, so this podcast has been going on for about 3 years now, with a break in there.
Yeah.
Because we ran out of things to talk about. Okay, people, don't let us run out of things to talk about again. You need to send us things like, hey, I'd love to hear you discuss this. But like with that, you know, like kind of going back and like, what did we talk about in those early days? I was like, I didn't go back and listen to them, but I realized like I might actually disagree with myself a lot. And just kind of, you know, it's Christmas time and I'm looking back through like old Christmas messages that I've done here at the church, because it's like, you guys, the Christmas story is the same. It's the same every year. So I'm like, how have I presented this before? What can I do different? And like, even like looking at how I said things before, I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that or I like how I said that. And so I don't know. The first thing that I just wanted to talk about was just, it's okay to change to, oh, this will be a kind of like a loaded word for some people. It's okay to evolve. In the sense of like, okay, I thought one thing, I got some more information, I grew, like life circumstances changed, and I maybe think slightly different now. That's okay. Mm-hmm. What say you?
I would agree, because I've changed my mind on many things over the years. It'd be funny for me to go back and look at like papers that I wrote in grad school and see like what position I took on those things and how much that's changed since then. But there's been a lot of things that I've definitely changed my mind on over the years.
Yeah.
Sometimes just based, like you said, on life experience, but also on doing more research, on hearing other perspectives. It's like, oh, I never considered that perspective before. So all that to say, it's okay to change your mind. We change our minds sometimes. And just because maybe you're watching this podcast or going back through other episodes, you're like, wow, I didn't know they believed that.
Maybe we don't.
Maybe we don't anymore. Who knows? Or
I found a lot of times too, like specifically with the podcast, and what we always wanted this podcast to be was just almost us thinking out loud, right? Like, kind of what we do. You know, like when we come in on Monday mornings, we drink a cup of coffee, and it's like, here's kind of what happened this week. Here's what's going on in the world. What do you think about that? And it's just this almost verbal processing, and so that's a good thing. I'll find times too where it's like I'll change my mind on something, and it'll be like, I used to think one thing, and then I thought another thing. And now I'm back to thinking the thing that I originally thought, but I have a better reason for thinking it. You know what I mean? And I think to change your mind too, like there's certain things that we hold on to. Specifically, we talk about like in the Christian faith, like there's these essentials. It's like, no, these are the things that we kind of hold with, a closed fist.
That we're not changing our mind on who Jesus is, who the Father is, the Spirit.
Right. Yeah, like the classic things in the creeds. But it's like I hold those things tightly, but maybe how I get to them changed. Or like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I understand it deeper or better now. And so I think they're like in a bigger picture, on a cultural level, we're not very good at this right now.
No.
At like thinking that people's thinking can change, or that's a good thing. You know what I mean? It's like, no, once you've thought one thing or you stated one opinion, you are always that. That's always your viewpoint. You're always that person. And we will bring back, a tweet from 15 years ago to say, like, you can't, like, you're a horrible person.
Twitter around 15 years ago?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. It's got to be close, right? Around 15 years ago, 2008?
Yeah, close.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, no, people are allowed to change, and I don't know. So we're not good at that. Right. We lock people in with these kind of like labels of like, you are this, you will always be this. And
it's so interesting because this is coming from a culture that doesn't like labels, but yet very quick to label things.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic?
Isn't that ironic?
Don't you think? Yeah. So that was just the first kind of thing. It's okay to change. It's and we're on this process together. There's things to hold on to tightly.
We're all on a faith journey together and a life journey together, and we have all changed our minds on many things.
In fact, I think if you're a healthy person, the older you get, the more you embrace that. That's like, I was wrong about things, and my mind has changed on a lot of things.
Wisdom has taught me.
Yes. Yeah.
Or I've gained some wisdom over my life. It's like, oh yeah, that perspective that I used to have was really immature or wasn't well formed.
Yep.
And so because of my years or my experience or new information, I've changed.
Right. Like if I'm still thinking about the world and processing things the same way as I'm 35, 45, 55 as I did when I was, 25, it's probably a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
So
So
that's
moving
topic
on.
number one.
Moving on.
You're a bullet
to
point person. Bullet
the
point
next
number
one.
2. Yeah. You're getting some water.
I sat it down too far.
I know. I was like, I didn't want mine in the shop, but there's literally nowhere to sit it.
See, I've
so-
dropped my water bottle so many times that it's very easy to
It's like
knock over because it's like a leaning tower of Pisa.
It's like the the Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Except yours does fall down.
Okay.
The little things that come over. You want to introduce the next topic? Or me too. I don't care.
Sure. So we wanted to talk about some of the cultural things that we see going on around us, mainly just the strong push in society to get away or cast off any form of tradition, any form of traditional identity, whether it's family, whether it's marriage, whether it's institutions, like forms of government, church,
faith.
nonprofits, faith. That those things are all bad. That we should just simply get rid of them. That we somehow know better. And I think it's ironic. It's interesting.
That's going to be the theme of this episode.
Because you hear over and over, like, those who don't know history are prone to repeat it.
Yeah.
And we just try to ignore history, ignore the past, and think that we know better.
Yeah, there's this idea of like what is wrong with us or wrong with the world has always been these like traditional things. And you mentioned some of them. And I don't know. There's an arrogance, I think, in saying that a lot of the things, specifically, it's a lot of like postmodern thought, which has only been around for like 100 years or something like that. I mean, it's very, very new, based out of wasn't it a French philosopher? Was it Derrida? Jacques Derrida, I think, maybe. Is he the father of postmodernism? I don't know. I'm going to say things and make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I actually don't. You're going to Google it now. I think that, I know he's a person, right? But it's like, this is a very, very new thing in the course of like human history to just say like, like we have all these new great ideas. And maybe we do. Like sometimes new ideas are good ideas. But I think there's just a danger or an arrogance to say like, because this is the most current cultural moment, therefore we have the best information, we have the best ideas, that anything that came before us was off. I'm pretty confident that it is C.S. Lewis that coined that term, chronological snobbery. That's like, because we exist further on the human timeline, therefore we're better.
So Jacques Derrida is one of several different Jacques. Maybe he went by different names.
Too many Jacques.
I'd have to read this article.
Whatever. But I don't know. Somebody kind of came up with that idea of like postmodern thought, like just throw off everything a little bit, and this is kind of a buzzword too because it's not all bad, but this is what a lot of like different critical theories come out of. It's like, take everything apart. It was probably all bad. Let's come up with new stuff. And again, that's not necessarily bad. It's good to understand things and to have different ideas. But I'm like a show me the data person. You know what I mean? Like, give me the hard evidence of that like this is something that's working. And it seems as though when we kind of look at just modern culture and life and what people are dealing with and going through and struggling with, it's like, is any of that new way of thinking working? Are things getting objectively better or not? Yeah,
and along with that, not only are we changing or trying to like scrap institutions, but also language is changing. And it's very popular to take a term that meant one thing and change it to meet your political agenda. So, I mean, we could see that with the recession.
It's not a recession.
Just a good example. It's like
it may meet all the definitions of what a recession is, but that's not what it's called.
We are not in a recession. Here's the definition of a recession, and like economists and other people are like, the definition of a recession according to the dictionary is this. But it's just like, no, that's not actually a recession. That's not what that means anymore because we're choosing to redefine it.
Right. It's like the moving goalpost kind of thing. It's like, what was that? But now it's this. Yeah. And so like, there's kind of been a thinking for a long time that, the things that we're throwing off, those kind of traditional institutions and structures and things that have kind of been like the fabric of specifically Western society for like a long time, there's been a push to say, well, that's actually what's wrong. That's been the problem with society. But if that actually were true, we're at a point now where those things have less influence than they've ever had. right? And so if that were true, if those were the things that were causing the problems, as they get less and less influence in society, things should get better and better.
Right. We should see greater human flourishing.
Right.
We should see, more people,
More happiness.
more happiness. We should see less poverty.
Less like struggle with mental health and addiction and suicide, things like that. And like that's not the case.
Right.
And so that just that doesn't mean there's not a correlation to say, well, therefore we need these things that we're trying to get rid of. They're the solution, but it is to say, well, maybe they weren't the problem. Maybe there's
Right.
something else going on.
Right. And maybe that problem is something that we can't solve on our own.
Owns on our owns
On
is
our owns.
precious.
Perhaps it's something that is outside of us that we need help solving. And from Christians, or as a Christian perspective, we believe that problem is sin, that each one of us has decided to go our own way, that we've decided to define good and evil on our own terms instead of like using God's wisdom to understand what good and what evil is, and partnering with God to bring about human flourishing instead of thinking, oh, we can do it on our own.
Yeah. And then I think that does kind of intersect then with some of our kind of old, I guess, traditional institutions, where from a Christian perspective, we would say that these are like, some of these things were in place by like kind of God's structure. So you're talking about faith in the church and the family and marriage and these kind of things. Now, certainly they've been hijacked and they've been corrupted and touched by sin as well. But when done like the way that God would have them, it's actually one of the things that kind of, for lack of a better word, like pushes back or holds back like some of the darkness and the sin and some of those, it's kind of some of those things where like God's common graces come through to society. Cause it's like, well, the church exists in the world and like strong families and those different things. And again, that's not to say that's just like a, hey, we just need to push everybody into these categories, but it is to say that maybe that's not the problem.
Right.
And to say that the things that we're like, we've got the solution, because I'd say overarching, the big solution just tends to be whatever feels right, whatever makes you happy. If it makes you happy, that's right. It can't be that bad. That is a horrible thought, right? I don't remember who sang that. It was a country song from the 90s. But if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. Ooh, that's actually great. That's going to be a sermon someday right there. Because like the next line is, if it makes you happy, then why the hell are you so sad? I just cussed on the podcast, but I was quoting something. And that's just true, right? Because that's the cultural moment we're in. If it makes you happy, do it. But wait, if that's what makes you happy, why are all of us not?
Right. Why is our happiness score dropping as a nation? Why is there more anxiety and depression, especially among younger people right now? Why is that increasing whenever we should be getting happier, whenever, we
have more individual freedom, more individual happiness.
Do whatever you want as long as it makes you happy. And who cares if people get hurt in the process?
Yeah. Or who cares even if you get hurt in the process? Sometimes like, what makes me happy? And it's not hurting me now, but it might in the future. But yeah, so anyway,
but right now I'm happy. So
yeah.
Or fleeting sense of happiness.
Fleeting sense of it. So yeah, like that was one of the things we want to talk about. It's just like there's just this increasing, I don't know, and maybe we're a little jaded, a little biased, and we probably are. Because it's like, well, we're pastors. We obviously believe in the church, and we believe in the Christian faith, and we believe in these things, and think they're God-given, beautiful, like things that lead to humans flourishing. And again, I kind of tend to be more like, well, give me some data, right?
But I think when it comes to the idea of tearing it all down, postmodernism, it's all relative, that we also have to be willing to tear down postmodernism if we're willing to tear down everything else. It's like, let's tear down that philosophy. Let's be critical of it instead of, no, we can't touch that, but we can touch everything else.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to keep everything as it was, because certainly there are some things in society that need to change, but we must do it carefully, intentionally, and critically, and be willing to say, no, there was some good there. Let's not change that.
What you just said, like being willing to rebuild it. It's this whole, and this is birthed out of that like postmodernism, tear it all down. It's this whole deconstruction movement. Now, specifically, let's talk about like in the church context a lot, like people deconstructing the faith, but it's just a societal thing, like deconstructing a lot of things. But I think what we miss in that is that deconstruction can be good, but deconstruction is not the same thing as demolition.
Right.
Deconstruction implies that there will be a reconstruction afterwards.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm looking at this thing. What needs change? Where are things failing? But hey, maybe this foundation here, it's still good. So what can we build back up? Like, how can we take things apart and actually get what needs to be there? But like you just said, it's like, we're like deconstructing just for the sake of deconstructing.
Right, and we're not building back on anything.
Yeah, and so you're just left with, there's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to build my life on. There's not, like, to quote the Bible, you know, good old some Solomon, what's attributed to Solomon, meaningless. It's all meaningless. It's like that's kind of where we land ourselves of just like, yeah. But the one thing that we're not willing to touch is that ideology that says tearing it all apart is the best thing that you can do. It's like, well, maybe that's something that needs to be torn apart. So, yeah. All right. Are we on topic number 3 now?
I think so. I don't feel like I have anything else to contribute at the moment that's intelligent.
That's all right. I mean, do you listen to most of the things I say? I don't feel like I have much intelligent to offer. Kind of coming out of that what we were just talking about, like tearing down the traditions. It's Christmas time, right? We're 2 weeks out?
Yeah.
Less than 2 weeks.
Yesterday was 2 weeks
away
exactly.
from Christmas. And it is ironic. The title of this podcast is going to be, Isn't It Ironic? It has to be, because each topic has this bit of irony. That like the things that we get excited about at Christmas time, what people look forward to and long for, the things that they give us all the feels in the Christmas songs and in the cheesy Christmas movies, and are these things, you know, it's like love and it's family and it's hope and it's joy, and it's even a sense of like a civil kind of religion, right? Like a kind of a maybe not true Christianity, but like this Christian veneer.
It's like, I still want to hear Silent Night and Away in a Manger on my radio at Christmas.
Like these are
I'm not going to go to church, but I want to hear about baby Jesus at Christmas.
Like we love these things, and like we try to find these areas where we get a little hit of Christmas. Like, oh yeah, that hope, that joy that felt so good, that warm fuzzy. But ironically, the things that we love about Christmas and we look for and we long for are the things that are brought to us primarily by the kind of traditional institutional things that we're trying to tear down. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, which is it? Like, which one do you want?
Well, you can't have it both ways.
You can't. But I have heard it both ways. Yes, we get another psych reference in. So yeah, I mean, it is Christmas time, and maybe those things that we love about Christmas, we shouldn't just stop at those nice feelings, but we should let that drive us to like, what's behind that? What is that longing? What does it really mean to have hope and joy and peace and love? These things of the Advent season.
Right. I don't have anything to add.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, here's how we're going to end things, though, because it's Christmas time. Hey, Paul, what's your favorite Christmas tradition? Do you have one?
My favorite Christmas tradition would be a toss-up between making/eating cookies.
Okay, you can just make them.
Baking, just in general, and putting up our Christmas tree.
Very nice.
Always enjoyed that.
I love that.
Perhaps this is Carrie Henning, if you're listening. This is a shout out to you. Perhaps a sense of nostalgia for my childhood.
Oh, nostalgia.
Getting a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Nostalgia is one of Carrie's words.
It's one of her favorite words. I would say for me, it would be like just decorating in general, because usually when we decorate, it's like, you know, you get everything out, and it doesn't always happen at once, but kind of, I mean, it's always, you know, there's always Christmas music playing. It's like we don't decorate, whether it's the tree or the house, without Christmas music playing, without hot cocoa in hand, right? Like it's a thing. So that's probably it for me.
Okay.
Love to hear from you guys. What is your favorite Christmas tradition? You can just drop it in the comments below this video. We would love to hear about it. And if it's something super cool or unique, we'll give you a shout out in January's episode.
That's right. And that's all we've got for today.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for sticking with us for this past year, and we'll see you in 2023, kicking off a new year in January.